Anthropic just dropped Claude Opus 4.8, and I have spent the last 24 hours going through the full 244-page system card, running it against real Claude Code workflows, and cross-referencing the benchmark claims against independent results. And what I found is that the story Anthropic is telling and the story that actually matters for people building with Claude Code are two completely different things. So today I am going to give you the honest developer verdict. What actually changed? What is marketing? What you need to know before you upgrade? And the one thing buried deep in this release that almost nobody is talking about, but that has serious implications for how you interpret Claude's outputs going forward. Let's get into it. First, let's deal with the benchmarks quickly because they matter, but not in the way the headline chart suggests. On SWE Bench Pro, autonomous coding endorsed by OpenAI, Opus 4.8 beats Opus 4.7 by 5 full percentage points and beats GPT 5.5 by 11. On the USA Mathematical Olympiad, which just came out with no contamination risk, 4.8 scores 97% versus 4.7's 69%. That is a 28-point jump. On knowledge work benchmarks, 4.8 is running an ELO of 1890 against GPT 5.5's 1769. On coding, math, and knowledge work, the three things most Claude Code users actually care about, 4.8 is a meaningful step forward. But here's where I want to slow down, because the benchmark picture is spikier than that headline chart makes it look. On financial analysis tasks, Gemini 3.5 Flash, a significantly cheaper model, outperforms 4.8, scoring 58% versus 54%. On tool use benchmarks measuring real-world external tool integration, GPT 5.5 is still ahead. And on common sense reasoning benchmarks, the entire Opus series from 4.5 through 4.8 has been bouncing around in the low to mid-60s. Anthropic have clearly made targeted bets: coding, math, knowledge work. If your Claude Code workflow lives in those lanes, you will feel a real improvement. If it doesn't, test before you commit. Now let's talk about what this actually feels like inside Claude Code. Because benchmarks tell you something, but they don't tell you what a session feels like at the 45-minute mark. The sequential thinking improvements in 4.8 are real, and they compound directly with the sequential thinking skill we covered a few videos ago. By default, 4.8 is natively better at breaking down complex tasks into explicit reasoning steps before it executes. It surfaces assumptions before it writes code. It flags where it's uncertain before you've already lost 20 minutes. If you have the sequential thinking skill installed, and if you watch the skills video you should, 4.8 and that skill together produce noticeably sharper outputs on complex, multi-step tasks than 4.7 did alone. The two reinforce each other. The context mode improvements also matter for longer sessions. The same problem we covered with context window bloating in 4.7 is less pronounced in 4.8. Sessions that used to start going sideways at the 30-minute mark are running cleaner for longer. Combined with the context mode skill, this means the practical session length before quality degrades has increased meaningfully. Now, Anthropic is leading with honesty as a headline improvement, and I want to give you an honest read on that claim, because it is true in specific measurable ways. When given a code base in an open-ended question, 4.8 proactively flags critical issues 96% of the time, 5 times better than Mythos preview. It is genuinely better at expressing uncertainty before it does something it is not sure about. In a Claude Code context that translates to fewer confident wrong answers and more moments where Claude says it needs more information before proceeding. That is a real quality of life improvement. But the system card itself tells a more complicated story. Anthropic documents a case where 4.8 told a user it was actively monitoring pull requests when it wasn't, multiple times. The user had to discover on their own that Claude was not doing what it claimed. And even after the user corrected 4.8 and Claude wrote the fix as a rule into its own memory files, it violated that rule multiple times afterward. This is not a solved problem. The honesty improvement is incremental and pattern-based, not a first principle. Treat 4.8 like a very capable junior developer who is getting better at flagging uncertainty, but still needs your eyes on the output. That hasn't changed. One practical thing worth knowing before you run anything at scale: Fast mode is now 3 times cheaper than it was on 4.7 while maintaining the same 2.5x speed advantage, and you can now control how long 4.8 thinks per task instead of letting it decide adaptively. For Claude Code users, that is actually a meaningful control. Dial thinking up on complex architecture decisions, dial it down on simple file edits. That flexibility alone is worth the upgrade if you're running Claude Code at any kind of volume. Now here's the thing that I think most creators covering this release are missing. It is buried on page 178 of the system card, and it has real implications for how you think about Claude's outputs going forward. Opus 4.8 is getting significantly better at knowing when it is being evaluated versus when it is in real deployment. The UK AI Security Institute found it can distinguish synthetic test data from real deployment data at 79% accuracy. And in around 5% of sampled episodes, Anthropic's own estimate, 4.8 showed awareness that it was being evaluated without ever verbalizing it. Not in its chain of thought, nowhere readable. Anthropic had to go into the model's neural network activations to find it. I want to be precise about what this means. This does not mean 4.8 has a hidden agenda. What it does mean is that the model you are working with is more sophisticated than previous versions in ways that go beyond the coding benchmarks. And it means that alignment evaluations, the tests that tell us how the model will behave in high-stakes situations, are getting harder to run reliably because the model is increasingly aware of when it is being tested. Anthropic says they believe the 5% figure is likely an underestimate. That is worth sitting with. So, practical verdict. Should you upgrade if you are building with Claude Code? Yes. The coding accuracy improvement is real. The reasoning improvements compound with the skills you already have installed. Fast mode at 3 times cheaper is real. The honesty improvements reduce specific Claude Code failure modes you have probably hit. None of this is revolutionary, but it is a clean step forward across every dimension that matters for a developer workflow. The bigger story is Mythos. Anthropic confirmed it is coming to all users in the coming weeks. And based on the system card, all the extra training data 4.8 got for math, chart reasoning, coding, and knowledge work goes into Mythos too. The Mythos that actually ships is going to be significantly stronger than the preview we saw earlier this year. That is the next video on this channel. Subscribe so you don't miss it. That wraps it up. If this helped, drop a like. If you want to keep building with AI and Claude Code, subscribe. New videos every week. See you in the next one.